Discover how smarter project insights can lead to better project outcomes.
Hello, project people. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Project Chatter podcast. It is always good to be here, even in the morning. Dale, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm good, thank you. A little bit weary from the Project Connect group networking night, PCG London #2 we had. Amazing turnouts, collaborated with Project Hack and Projecting Success. Huge shout out to Martin Paver and the gang. They put on an amazing show and we got over 300 there combined. So that was great. But Martin was there too. And I don't know, Martin, you've tried to stay away from data, but you enjoyed the networking and the beverages that came along with that, didn't you?
Oh, it's project management for you. But yeah, it was a really good event. I saw bits of the what was in the hackathon or some of the challenges, and it seemed really interesting. And then, again, seeing a real variety of people in the evening in the project management industry was really good. Some really interesting conversations. So yeah, very, very good.
Great, mate. It's good to have you back too, Martin. We missed you. And let's bring in our guest today, a good friend of ours, Mr. Nigel Creaser. How are you, sir?
Magnificent. Yes.
Excellent.
Feel quite awake. I don't think I had as much celebration as the other two guys last night. So, and it's not as early over here for me, so I'm okay.
No. I do a lot of favors for the British, and look, I will be courteous today as well. I think this topic is really interesting from a project perspective. Anyway, let's get into it. So, I always start with kind of a bit of a backstory, but yours is interesting, and you do have a book out. We will get to that at some point. But productivity in general, like what's the big deal? Because sometimes productivity could be a buzzword. You hear it a lot. We need to be more efficient. We need to be more productive. We need to be more effective. What does productivity mean to you exactly, Nigel?
So from my focus on when I ever think about it, it's about, can I get out of the office half an hour earlier every day? For me, that's to spend time doing the things that I want to do now, or at home as well. Can I be more productive at home and be able to get and do the things I enjoy doing rather than things that have to be done? And I think it's about that. That's what it means about being able to use your time the way you want to rather than the way you have to.
That's great. And with obviously there's a context of projects with everything we talk about today. I've not seen, and I could be very wrong, anything in the kind of project literature, the institution, the certifications, the badges we all collect, that talks really into detail about this. They talk about process, they talk about systems, they talk about the various disciplines of project management. But when it comes to going home half an hour early, why isn't that in the book?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's because it's the soft skills. It falls into that sort of banner. The time management skills. It doesn't matter whether you've been I was on time management training courses 20 and something years ago. And it's always about being more effective with your time, being organized, having your lists of tasks and manage it that way, or managing it in your calendar. I've probably still got it in here. I don't know if you guys remember something called the time system, which was a sort of competitor to Filofax, and they had a whole set of training on how to use this booklet that had multiple leaves of paper in there before we started carrying around phones or PDAs. And I think it's always thought of as being something that we should know if we're in management as a general point, but I don't think actually even in careers it's taught that heavily. It's assumed that you'll find a way. It's assumed that you'll use Outlook or something like that to manage it. And the way I look at it is, I think there's multiple ways of improving the speed you can do something. I do catch myself wandering around the kitchen thinking, right, what's the order that I'm going to make my coffee, make my breakfast, do that, and kind of just automatically kind of what's the process flow, if you like. But I think when you start then looking at projects, isn't that the fundamentals of what a project is? You've got an end goal that you're going to try and do something, and you've got to organize it, and you've got to work out the quickest route through, essentially, and the least resource using route, and to get you the results. So that's about productivity as well, but it's at a macro level rather than the micro level, that your organizational productivity to deliver the project. So I think it's kind of in there but hidden, if you know what I mean. It's because we break it out into all these different things that you would do, and actually those apply to us in our own personal, every single document we write. You could write a project plan, do a risk assessment, do all of those things on that document, but that'd be overkill. But you are doing it, but kind of in the back of your head. But sometimes you don't realize you're doing it, and you're maybe not using the tools that could help you do it.
Yeah, and I guess for some of the listeners and myself, just to clarify the difference between, efficiency and productivity, because I think when I think about productivity, I think about volume. So I think about like a factory line.
Yeah.
I want to get more widgets out at the factory.
Yeah.
I would do something to increase productivity in that rate. What's the difference from your perspective, or how do you classify the difference between efficiency and productivity?
So I think productivity, you've got to bring effectiveness in there as well. There's no point being efficient if if you can be really good at delivering rubbish. You can be really good and really, really fast at delivering really poor quality service to your customers, or poor quality outcomes from your project. And you can do it in the most effective, most efficient way possible. But if it's not effective, it's not good delivering what's needed, what's the point? You might as well go home in that scenario. And I think there are, you touch a point there where I think there's the way that some of the tools around organizational productivity and effectiveness, efficiency, the focus has always been on reducing something rather than delivering something. So I know where you've had situations where people have done, right, we're going to go lean. So we've got a department and we're going to go lean in this department. And it's really, they become really efficient because what they do is get everybody else in the organization to do things instead of them. And that is kind of like, they're really efficient. We can cut 50 people out of the team because we're really efficient. But actually the rest of the organization is having to drag in loads of people and doing little bits of all of it instead of doing it all in one hit. And we'll do that with our own time as well. There's things that I try to do about kind of doing, it's like about focus. We talk about focus, about trying to stop me context switching. So simple ones like timesheets. If I've got email timesheets coming through for approvals or expenses or those kind of things, I move that email into a separate folder when it comes in. I don't look at it, it goes into a folder. And then at certain points in the week, I'll go and deal with those. The thing is I go into that approval system or the expenses system. I go in it once, so the finding the link, logging in, and it's really tiny savings you could be making. But if you've got into that system, you think, right, oh, this is awful again. I can't remember how to use this damn thing. Where do I find that bit? Right, I found it. Right, now, bang, 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 bang. You deal with them all. And then, or if you need input into that, you'll have the emails that everyone's sent to you saying, I did this work on this day, or whatever it is. And you can just go through it and deal with that all in one go. And that, whereas sometimes the organizations or someone will try and be lean, try and be efficient, break everything out, and then the rest of the organization's got all these little bits to do, and everyone's doing a little bit and repeating. It's just nonsense at times. That's kind of a way I look at efficiency and effectiveness, and they've got to be together. That's the thing. If you talk about productivity, to me, it's the combination of those two things.
The lean factor is interesting as well. I mean, I think the idea is good, but then how do you go about it? And we're talking kind of conceptually now, but it's all great to say lean, remove waste.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Good idea. And then we talk about being efficient and effective and productive. That's kind of the end goal of project managers. We all want to do, we want our teams to be like that.
Yeah.
I guess the next question for me and maybe some of the listeners is like, how do you start? What do you do? What's your source of inspiration? Yes, there's a book, but how do you then implement that?
So for years, I've always looked at ways to try and kind of automate stuff. And over time, I've tried different tools to organize myself, because essentially I describe myself as fairly flaky. And if I don't, well, it's just that's the way it is. It's kind of if I can be diverted by something interesting and fun, I will be diverted by something interesting and fun. So all these other things that are essential, not fun, but need to be done, I need to keep myself on focus. And that's where always been looking at things, right? How can I do it? How can I make myself better at doing that? So maybe too far sometimes, but I know that if I don't manage myself, I won't. That's my character. I won't do the things that I'm meant to be doing. It's very easy for me on a project. We have a problem, right? I'm a failed accountant, so Excel I started using in my first proper job, and well, actually it was Lotus 123 before they had the fancy GUI, and you had to get an add-in to make pretty printouts and things like that. So it's a long time before we had a lot of the tooling. But my sort of growing up with Excel, first thing is to use Excel to solve a problem. It's like give someone a hammer, right? Everything's a nail. I'm a little bit like that sometimes. And then if there's a spreadsheet there, like, okay, I need to get the colors working right, and we need a pivot table and a bit of reporting on there, and this on it, and I can sit there and I'll spend 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 2 days, hours or days getting a really good spreadsheet together. And then towards the end of it, I'm thinking I really should have asked someone else to do this, because I've got this pile of things that's growing that I should be dealing with, and this probably wouldn't, because. And I still do it now. I catch myself doing it. I think, all right, no, that's someone else to do that. Someone else is better positioned in the organization to do that piece of work. And thinking about what you're doing. And it all boils down to priorities, delegation, automation of what you do, and keeping that focus. And if you are someone who doesn't need that and is good at going, right, I know what needs to be done and I can do it, that's great. Yeah, I think you're very lucky. I think a lot of us are. Well, it's like that squirrel scenario, isn't it? It's kind of all shiny. I'm a bit like, well, you can see all the garbage I've got hanging around behind me. So it's kind of yeah. So that's what got me to do it. It's just trying to help me get better. And some of the tools that I picked up with, I share with people. So,
what would you say and I'll hand off the dial in a sec. What do you think the number one kind of best practice from your perspective would be in the productivity world? If you're, like you said, if you're a little bit flaky, I'll put my hand up as well. I tend to follow the shiny things, maybe a reincarnated magpie or something. But I do think that there's some fun in that. But it isn't useful for a project manager to always do that. And you see it all the time, actually. But if you wanted to be productive, I guess you can then be flaky because you've got this extra time to just waddle around. So,
well, the idea is you plan that time.
Yeah. And it's good to have some free time, right? Between plan time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I heard something the other day that I've implemented recently was someone who in their calendar has blocks where they try to keep it completely clear so that if their team need them, they can grab them, but they don't have meetings in there. So literally this week, it's brand new to me on this one, is I put a block in my calendar on a Friday morning now that says, free time, open to contacts, no meetings, because it's the meetings that seem to kill me. So in that slot, it's kind of available for stuff that might happen. Now in those sort of slots, you can, again, like Outlook has this focus time that it can drop in your calendar, and it can be like creative time, investigation time, whatever it is, and I do think your brain, if your brain knows that you've got that in quotes playtime, that you can go. I don't know if you guys have read the book by Steve Peters, the Chimp Paradox, which is all about our inner selves and how you've got that base character that wants to make you happy and wants to protect you, and it doesn't care about anything else. It's the 4-year-old in you. Yeah, it's that absolute psychopath that will do anything to make you happy and say and do whatever you want to do. And being able to offer that part of your brain, I've got this, I've got to do this. Oh, I don't want to do that. Why don't we do this? And you've got that. Well, we're doing that in a couple of hours. It can kind of calm it down and stop it insisting and taking you off down that other route. So it's that's one of the. It's something that's come to me recently.
Yeah, that's great. I actually had found this button. I don't know if everyone's got it, but in Microsoft asked me if I wanted them to plan my focus time.
Yeah.
And now I hate it, right? Because what happened is I pressed it and it's just started to find clear gaps in my calendar and put blocks of focus time. I'm like, no, wait a second.
Yeah,
I can't have 2 hours focus time in a day. But that's
the point, though. Is easy. One of the things that I also is scheduling my work is something I do with my calendar, and my calendar can look much busier than people think because it's got work time. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I've got an email. I've got to think about, respond, gather data, send it back. So I'll schedule time to do that. Not because otherwise, other people won't sit there thinking, oh, they look busy. They need some time for doing some work. What they'll do is go, there's half an hour gap. I'll have it. I need to talk to them. And you end up, we've all had these scenarios of back-to-back meetings, half an hour here, half an hour, 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 no lunch break. And you'll go through the whole day, and you're absolutely, and these days, especially with the audio, Teams meetings and things like that, you are absolutely ripped to shreds by the end of the day. And you haven't done any, in quotes, work. Now, I'm not someone who says meetings, we shouldn't have meetings. I think there are reasons to have them, and meetings are great if they're managed well and they're clear agendas, clear attendees, those sort of things. And you don't always get it. If you've got control of a meeting, you can control it and trying to drive it a little bit. But then you've got other work, you've got follow up from it. Ideally, if every meeting, for me anyway, it would be meeting, and then you've got 15 minutes of, right, what did I do in that meeting? Write up my notes, think about what I need to do from there, plan my actions, put them in my calendar. And those are the sort of things that would be better to do rather than going to the next meeting and forgetting everything that you've been talking about. And you're context switching straight away. And it goes beyond just those half hours as well, because being productive at home, being productive in the office and being productive at home, and that is productive there, where, I mean, as a partner, as a parent, as whatever you are doing as a person in the community, if you leave the office and you're straight away context switch straight into family mode, partner mode, or whatever community mode, you don't get that decompression zone in between as well. So that I think, especially now with the remote nature of work, that's increased tenfold as well. I found it quite difficult last year and the year before, dealing with stepping out of my office here, which goes straight into my dining room. As soon as I was in my dining room, I was dad and husband. I didn't get my 40-minute break of listening to a podcast, cursing whatever had been going on that day, and processing all that had been going on and thinking about what I might do tomorrow.
Yeah, it's an interesting space, Nigel. I mean, I love the fact you talk about time management and calendar management in specific, and context switching is an interesting thought as well, because you don't realize actually how energy draining it is to switch constantly. You know, if you switch topics maybe 3-4 times a day and they're big topics, that's tiring within itself. But as you say, if it's back to back, talking about 8 to 10 different strands and different conversations and trying to keep up with it with no break, you actually don't have, as you say, that buffer time to let it all sink in and absorb it, process it, and then, be able to, I guess, respond to it in a more meaningful manner and add more value to your response. But the other thing that I picked up as you're talking there as well was around how you can actually spend too much time trying to automate, get the flow right.
Yeah.
And that's a skill within itself. So, okay, I want to get better. I want to create more time for myself. Well, you can't create more time. You want to do less of the mundane things, as you put it. Then there's that whole argument, well, if you're not enjoying your job with the good and the bad, then isn't your heart in it? But we won't go down that.
I have a view there.
Go on.
I'm going to give you a view there. I interviewed on my podcast a guy called Gerald Leonard, who is a project manager and professional bass player. I don't know if you guys have had him on yet. He's a really good guest.
Okay.
Wrote a book called Workplace Jazz. And we were talking about, and he said something about musicians. And I kind of get it, is that he's saying about the fact that when you are doing a musician's job, most musicians, the bit where you get that big high and that big hit and that amazingness and you love the feedback is when you're stood in front of that crowd, or when you're writing a song and you've got a new melody and you're working with a group trying to pull this song together. And that's great. But it's just like that's 5% of the job.
Yeah.
You've got the rest of the thing is standard rote practice. Now, if you love playing your instrument, great, you've got your practice, but it is going over the same thing. There's no new creation. It's just doing the same thing. It's relearning, which can be hard. But then there's the other bit, which is sitting in airports, sitting in rubbish hotels, sitting on a bus, not knowing, rushing from one place to the other. And as you say, those bits, you're not always going to enjoy those kind of things, even in what could be perceived as one of the most amazing things to do in your passion of being a musician. There are still going to be elements of that job that when we look at it, and you guys, I'm sure, would have been traveling with work and have friends or family who think, well, it's great staying in a hotel. It's fab, isn't it? When you get in a hotel, you get a fancy meal, and there's only so many chicken Caesar salads that you can eat, isn't there? That are really nice, and they're really nice the first time you go and stay somewhere. The next time you go, well, I'll have that, and then I'm moaning there, but there is an element to it that isn't. It becomes mundane, I think. So I think that if you are passionate about every single part of your job, that's fantastic. But I'm not sure that they're all there. There's a balance. Don't get me wrong. If 99% of your job you hate every day, then maybe there's something wrong. But I think there are some bits of it. There's just bits that are just rubbish and you don't want to do.
No, absolutely. You take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's great that you jump into that one, because I was like, well, what's the point at which, traveling for work is too much? And I think it's when you're on first name basis with a waiter at your hotel.
Restaurant. Yeah. That's just good to know.
Yeah, which Val is just, I saw his eyes flick up. He's like, oh yeah, I know the waiter at that hotel.
It's when you become like Alan Partridge. I think that's it. When you're in that position where your life revolves around the place where you're staying in that hotel.
Awesome. Let's switch back quickly just to calendar management.
Yeah.
And I do very similar things to what you're saying, where, I try and block out time for certain bits of work, give myself some thought space. But that takes discipline as well. There's one thing planning it and putting it there. There's another thing actually sticking to it.
Yeah.
And not only that, then people that deal with you have to respect your time as well. So, and often people, I guess, particularly in the British society, you want to be polite. So if someone sends you an invite, you want to accept, but actually just say no. If you can't, just reject. Maybe they should change the word reject, because it sounds a bit harsh. Maybe, is there a softer word we can use for the British instead of reject, invite?
I think mine would end in off. If my calendar's got a meeting in there, and someone asks me politely to say, dude, I've been looking for slots. I really need to talk to you. I need you in this meeting. Or the customer, this is the only slot the customer can do, or whatever. Can we do something about it? Can we swap it? Then yeah, it's great. It's no problem. Sometimes when there's scenarios where you've got, say you've got a large meeting where you've got a lot of people trying to get in there, and it's a big session for all hands, not all hands, but you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Sometimes then they're going to crash your diary, and it's you can choose not to go to that. It's your time, and fundamentally it's your calendar. Now there are consequences to you saying no to those. Now those consequences could be if it's the boss saying, right, I want to talk to you about your pay rise, and you say no just because it's 10 minutes into your lunch or whatever. There's consequences where they might say, well, stuff you then, I'm not giving it you. Extreme, obviously, but there is consequences, but that's the same with everything. And I heard there's a podcast called Manager Tools, which I started listening, one of the formative podcasts for me many years ago, where they talk about when someone says, oh, I'd rather be playing golf than being at work. And they challenge that. And they said, well, no, because you're at work. You've made a choice. You're a grown-up. You're not a child who has to go to work, go to be there. You've made a choice. The choice is, do you want to feed yourself and your family and shelter your family, or would you prefer to be playing golf? To be quite honest, if you're not at that job in that time, you probably couldn't afford the fees for the golf course. But you know what I mean? That's the point, isn't it? There are consequences to all the choices we make, but the thing that gets me is with and I'll quote a Rush song, Free Will, where it's a line that I've always loved, where it said, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And as a lyric and as a thing, it's just amazing, I think, because it just sit there and go, right, if you choose to manage your diary and say no, great, you've made a choice. There are consequences to that. If you say, right, okay, just put them in, I'll go to whatever meeting people put in my diary, you've still made a choice. Do you know what I mean? You've let other people take control of your time and your life. And in any other part, in any other part of our lives, we probably wouldn't. When we're in the office, we tend to do that a little bit. If someone turned around to you, anybody that just said, right, Nigel, you need to be here at 8:30 to get on this podcast. No, yeah, we are doing that. Sorry, no. If they said you need to be there somewhere to do that, yeah, you choose to. If you just don't, you don't just go, do you? You say, oh, what's going on? Oh, yeah, I will come out for a beer. Yeah, I will do this. I will do that, because you choose to. You don't just blindly do it to every request you get. But sometimes there's a perception, I've had it, that, oh, I have to be at those meetings. But actually, they need you at that meeting rather than you need to be at the meeting. And that drops onto one of the key things that we've got to do with our productivity is knowing our priorities. Because if you don't know your priorities, how do you know where you should be?
No, yeah, very good points. And as you're talking there, I was thinking, Val, do you remember when we had some of our team and we were coaching them and they went, I just don't know how to prioritize. There's just so much going on. And I remember you did this. You said, well, have you ever seen that quadrant where you look at what's important and what's urgent?
Yeah.
And you just simply draw it out and you look and you go, if it's important and urgent, well, that's priority number one.
Yeah.
If it's not, well, guess what? It's slow down the scale. And it's quite this simple techniques we can use to do that. But the other one, before we hit record, Nigel, we were talking, I was saying about Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. Yeah. And I actually tried this one. It's I guess, a hack from Tim Ferriss, where he said, put your out of office automatic reply on all the time. And what you have in it is you constantly have a message that says, due to my workload, I'll only be responding to emails twice a day, round about noon, round about 4 p.m. To decrease your email traffic and to say, if anything is urgent, please call me. Here's my number. So that's the first bit, right? To get people used to not just, because our email boxes have thousands and thousands of unread emails, right? I'm sure we all have that.
Yep.
And guess what? They probably date back years and no one's ever come after you. So it's okay.
I have something on that in a minute.
That's great. And so he said, then the next thing is, then people will start phoning you, which is the first step. But then they're going to want to chat. How are you? How's your day? Blah, blah, blah. And because you already set the urgency with that email and said you've got this workload, your first sort of answering the call go, hi, John. Hi, Jill. Great to take your call, but I'm really stuck for time. Is it something I can help you with right now? And you get straight to the point. They go, yep, no problem. This is what I need. Blah, blah, blah. So, okay, boom, done. And that frees up the time from the chit chat, because you don't want to be chit chatting when you want to be productive. And I tried that, and it came back with mixed reviews with the British public. They're like, you can't do that. You can't tell people not to email you. And then others were like, wow, that's brilliant. It's excellent. I was like, well, it's not my idea. I just stole it. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on sort of just telling people to back off and not email you.
Yeah. So I don't read emails. Is one thing I would say. I'll clarify that. I don't read all emails for a start. Again, I've got to go back to manager tools and say it's not my ideas. Most of the things that I use, I put it. The recommendation they always come with similar: read your emails 3 times a day. Don't do anything. But the focus is around, again, it's about context switching. When you're reading emails, read emails. Don't do anything else. Don't think, should I do that? Don't turn off your phone. Turn off email, or actually turn the email off so you can't get any new ones. Look at your emails and deal with those emails in there. And if you can't deal with them within, and I can't remember where this came, you can't deal with it immediately, schedule time to deal with it. But that's how you do it. And you're kind of like, right, if I can't deal with it now, going yes, approved, or delete, schedule time to do it. And that's how I try to do it. I don't succeed. There's one thing I would say, all these things that I try to do, I fail more times at doing and keeping myself disciplined than I succeed. But I have these tools that I try to use and I try to get back. So I'm tempted to read email more often, like lots of us are, during the day. But the thing that I don't do is, if someone copies me on an email, I don't read it. Many years ago now, I set a rule in Outlook, and if people don't know, Google it, get on YouTube. There's a guy who does some fantastic stuff on how to use these things on YouTube. I can't remember his name, but if you search for something to do with Microsoft, he pops up. And there's a bunch of automated rules, and they can get really sophisticated. But I set one up that said, if someone has copied me on an email, put it in a separate folder. And up until recently, it would sit there. And the idea was that you could go and check them later in the day. But because you're copied in them, they're not a priority to the people who are sending you. That if you're copied to them, actually, do you need to read them? And the thing that got with me, a little story of when I did it first, I set it up and I thought, right, I'll be really good. I'll be super disciplined. I won't look at it. Set it up running, itching to look at it. But by the end of the day, I finished all things I was doing, and then I had a look at the CC folder, and in there was a 20-30 emails, all with the same subject line. And I thought, oh dear, what's this? Looked at the last one, and something like, all done, thanks, cheers everyone. I went, oh, okay. Scroll through, get to the beginning, read the first one, and think, yeah, I would have got involved in that. If I'd read that first email, I would have been involved in the conversation. I would have been using my time to deal with that. And actually, I didn't need to, because the team dealt with it. I didn't need to deal with it. They dealt with it. To polish my ego a little bit and shore it up, perhaps I could have helped them do it quicker. Perhaps I could have helped them do it better. But again, the time I saved not dealing with that, I was spending, hopefully, or should have been spending on my priorities that could leverage my time. And if you take it out, something like that, if you can save quarter of an hour from dealing with emails that your team deals with, and then you can work on a business case to get some funding for some better tooling for your team to help save an hour a week for everyone, where should you be spending your time? You need to be spending your time on that sort of bigger, more leverage item. So, and again, another podcast recently I was on, one of the guys, he moves his to CC and he marks them as read. And I'd never got the courage to do that. This is well over 10 years I've been doing this. And this year I set it so that I mark them as unread.
Yeah.
Now, and I know there's people out there listening to this who are like clenching their fists and like shaking with rage that, hang on, I've got to read all these. How can you let that go? And that, again, I'm flaky, so it's easier for me to do that. But some people will not be able to do it. But the challenge back to people I say on that is, you guys, you like data. I know that. When you get an email, how many data points have you got? 6, maybe 7? Title? Well, the title could be wrong because how often do you go through an email thread and see the title and find that it's changed topic 20 forwards ago or 20 reads ago? And so actually the conversation at that point in time is nothing to do with what it says in the topic. So that bit of data is crap. Who's it from? Okay, great. It's from your boss. Brill. So we could prioritize everything from our boss. So, but sometimes the boss says, will someone stop leaving dirty forks on the drainer instead of washing up the forks or washing up cups properly? You don't need to read that every time, do you? That, again, so the fact that it comes from your boss is a poor piece of data. Someone helpfully's marked it as important. Okay, timesheets, they're late, it's important. Well, you don't need to deal with it now. And you start looking at all those data points on an email, and they're rubbish for making a decision on whether you should read that over another one. So no matter what you're doing, you're making, you said you got thousands of emails in your thing. You're making decisions on which of those to read based on data that is wrong, either wrong or useless. So that's it. Whatever you're doing is wrong. So, right, let's get rid of some of the noise, move all the copied ones out of the way. The risk is it might be important. Yes, it might be something you could have been reading. It might be from your boss and it's important. So you can put exceptions in for key clients, key customers, maybe key keywords, because the tools are really, really sophisticated in what they do. And of all the productivity things I talk to people about, I kind of go, do this. Just do this one thing and do it once. And I did it for, a customer of mine, I said that I did this. Because and the other thing is, you tell people I don't read copied emails, and people look at you a bit weird, and then then they start adding you into the 2 when you need to be in the 2. And I talked to this customer, and she helped set up this rule, showed her how to do it, and she sat there and she pressed the button, and the kind of a bit of delight on her face as 300, 200, 300, 400, 500 emails started coming out of her inbox into this CC'd. Because the thing is, you don't know if it's CC'd to you by looking at it easily, and even if she went and read them all, she'd immediately gone, right, priority, not low priority. So you'd immediately gone switch. And for me, I think if you just did that to improve your productivity, that gives you some time back. That gives you some focus on things that are more likely to be your priority than are just there because people think, just in case Nigel needs to know that, or I need to show someone that I'm copying Nigel on that, which quite a lot of time, that's why it's there.
It's fantastic. I actually know, I think Val and Martin will also know who I'm talking about, a PM that actually went one step further. Mm-hmm. And if he was CC'd, it would go get deleted straight away.
Yeah, I've not got that brave yet.
The other thing, though, to your point, is that if something is important and it goes into the CC folder, guess what? Someone will phone you and say, have you read the email?
Yep.
And you go, no, I haven't. And they'll talk to you about it. So there's no harm in doing that. I totally agree with you there.
But it's all about risk. It's consequences. And do you know what? The risk of that and likelihood of that happening is fairly low. I've had people say, oh, I copied you on it. All right, I'll look in a copy. There it is. Right, I can read it then. That's fine. Because it's something I can pick up, I've still got it. But actually, it doesn't matter. If someone picks up the phone and asks you, it's unlikely to happen anyway. But it's just as likely you'll miss that email because you've got too many there anyway, and you may not have read it anyway. So I think what it is, it feels like because you're doing it on purpose. Yeah. If you accidentally miss an email, that's okay. Because if you're on purpose not reading an email, people think, well, that's not. And to your thing, especially if you're British, it's polite to read all correspondence, isn't it?
Yes, you have to do everything all the time very politely. But talking of people that don't read email, well, I think he does it on purpose. Val doesn't read anything I email him. So I just text him any time of the day, night. I just text him. So he has to look at it. It's from his phone to his smartwatch, and it buzzes on his wrist. So that happens. But bring it back to the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week test I did. So Martin received when I first put it on, and Martin texted me straight away going, what the are you doing? And I was like, I'm just testing it out. Give me a break type thing. But it's great to have Martin back. And it's usually the section called Machine Gun Martin, Nigel. But it's his first one back for the year. So I don't know if he's going to quite be Machine Gun Martin. But Martin, come on. Have you got anything nice and spicy to go at, Nigel?
Yeah, I was thinking back to when I saw that. I'm not taking emails, and I wasn't the only one. I think I just expressed the general feeling of the people around me at the time. But okay, so a lot of what we've spoken about so far is about managing yourself, and a skill of project managers is to manage other people and their priorities and the priorities of the project. In your experience, do different prioritization techniques suit different backgrounds? So as an example, I'm guessing most people in the project management sphere have come across your Covey prioritization, your matrix, your Kanban boards. Val, he loves the Eisenhower matrix that we talked about earlier. Whereas people from maybe different backgrounds, such as engineers, they're stereotypically perfectionists who aren't as time focused as your project manager is. I'm guessing that's your background as well. Do you try and tailor the tools and techniques to your individual stakeholders, or do you try on a project context, do you try and make it a bit more all encompassing to have something like a Kanban board to monitor progress? Do you try and tailor it to the individual stakeholders? Yeah,
I think for me, with the roles that I've done generally, that we've got there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of, like myself, we're looking at do some improvements in some stuff I was doing. So I've got like Microsoft Planner because it's dead easy to do. We can chuck it on there. We can all get together and do that. I think it's the general thing for me is coaching people on is the conversation of understanding how people prioritize and tell them what I do. But I make the point that prioritization, I think, is you're really right. It is a very much a personal, what works for you. That's the same with all these tools. What works for me may not work, but it might, like the emails I was talking about there, and the way that Dale was saying about, I had a colleague of mine. I'm trying to think how many years back now. That would have been before 2000, so probably 1996, 97. And this is when email was very new, pretty much. And it was one of those things you had to have authorization to get an email account at the time. So that was within where I worked at one of the banks. And a colleague of mine put a similar sort of out thing saying, I'm not only read emails twice a day. Bang, I won't need it if you need to come, same sort of thing. And I still wouldn't do that because, and I'll challenge a little bit on the validity of it is it just adds more emails into the sphere, which which of course it gives other people more emails to read. But that's the out of office thing is kind of a thing. But again, telling people that you do that's great. Do you know what I mean? It works. But I think there's prioritizing tools. You look at all of the different books written there, and I've tried numerous different ways of prioritization, and I'm not very good at it, to be quite honest. Sitting down and writing down my priorities and planning it out and go, right, here's my list of priorities I've got here, and understand and then try to join them to it. And there's a story that I heard about. It's about it doesn't, I think it doesn't matter what you use. And it goes to that rush comment again. If you don't use something, other people are deciding for you. And if other people are deciding for you, they're not deciding for you with you in mind, they're deciding for you with their priorities in mind. So if you haven't got those priorities, and as Val said, if you use that method of, right, is it important and urgent? Yes. So how do you judge what's important? Because then you've got to have a list of what your goals and objectives are, either in the project or you personally, to assess important. Urgent is easy enough to assess, isn't it? Because someone's shouting. It's that importance and relative importance to each other is when the art comes in. And I think that's the bit that, and actually it's where, and I call it art there because it's not science. What's important, and it changes through the week and month. Things that are really important to you on one part of a project at a certain time, or one part of your role, 6 months down the line, they're different. And you've got to continually reevaluate those priorities. You same at home. You think about what we've had over the last 2 years. All of us, our priorities, we have reevaluated. I spent some time last year, I was off sick, off with stress and anxiety and things like that. 5 months I was off, and part of that kind of made me go, hang on, I need to change some priorities. I need to change boundaries. And I think we talked before about saying no to calendar invites and things. One of the things that I'd started doing, especially during the pandemic, is my boundaries weren't clear anymore. I wasn't holding those boundaries close. There was other things driving that and deeper than that, but fundamentally the boundaries they were my boundaries, but I wasn't keeping to them. Yeah. And your priorities help you define those boundaries, whether it's at home, at work. And I think, and you can't just say, right, my priorities are just this at work. You've got to balance it with your home life and your future as well, because sometimes you've got to think how far down the line it is. And we start to get very much into the deeper sort of, so if you like, existential conversations about it. But you need to, I had a diagram about priorities and an annual planning thing, which had, it's like a typical 4 quadrant, which is always, it's a good start because it's simple, it's easy to use. Yeah, and it had like work, health, spiritual, emotional, or something like that, or home, and just had and what were your, and kind of a box, and it was just a PowerPoint thing. It's kind of put your top 5 things in there that you consider at the moment. And then if you've got that in front of you, and then everything that you're doing, and you hold up every email that you're about to read and see which one it fits against, or every meeting that someone wants you to go to, well, which does that, and again, I'm saying I'm not an angel on this. I don't do it all the time. We kind of do it, but sometimes not consciously. But if you have that list in front of you, that you've got 5 things that are the most important things that you've got to do in your role over the next 12 months, that or deliver in the project, that are stuck on the side. Because we do it with the projects, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
As a project team, we'll sit there and go, this project must deliver these objectives. These are the critical success factors of this project. But we don't necessarily do it for our own lives. And if we did it and stuck it on our screen and said, evaluate that, why am I doing this? That doesn't lead to any of those. Now, it might be like me and Val, because, oh, it's shiny. That's why we're doing it. But we need a line on there that says shiny. Spend time looking at shiny stuff. I think it's
Is it a subject that you think could be taught in schools or universities? Because what you're saying there is it's very much experiential, and you're reassessing things even last year, and you're an experienced project manager. Do you think is something you could teach at a school, or the fundamentals, or is it just you learn as you go along?
No, I think there are things that a lot of the tooling that we use in life, in business life, I think there are elements of it that can be taught. I think there are elements of it that are taught, but maybe not explicitly, and maybe more when kids are littler rather than older. But I think it's and I like you start getting into the point of who's meant to educate where, when, and where does home and where does school, because what's the school's job? The school's job is to provide information to employees about the capability level of these individuals. It's not about, I might be being really controversial, it's not about educating students, because it's about that piece of paper to say this person is of this level and you want a person of that level of intelligence. And actually that doesn't necessarily mean that's a translatable life skill. Project management, how many kids do you know are coming back from school go, right, I've got a project to do? And I said, they're going, well, where's the Gantt chart? Yeah, if it's a project, where's the Gantt chart for me, or a Kanban board? Same on Good Old Apprentice, where they've got project managers. Again, where's your PID? It's not a project manager, but it is actually, isn't it? We're all doing projects all the time. And I had a set of decking that I did and a lawn in my garden, and that I had a plan and I had a Gantt chart, and I had what I had to do when and what I was going to do on that. Because if I didn't do that, it would have just been a random load of stuff turning up at different times for me to do things. And it is those skills, those prioritization skills. I think there are things that we as parents can teach, or as uncles or colleagues or new people coming into. When you see people in the organization who aren't prioritizing, who are getting swamped, who are just letting other people knock them around, put your arm around them and say, look, this is what I found and this is how you should do it. But again, it's a simple internship when you get people coming in. I'm not sure of the exact training of different places, but you think we want all our people to be focusing on their objectives that we've given them. So wouldn't it be right to train them on how to set at their objectives and how to focus on them and how to be productive with their objectives? It feels like as an employer, you can assume everyone's done that, or you can make sure that these guys get the best training in it.
Big assumption, isn't it?
Yeah,
I imagine there could be some quite difficult conversations in there. Not telling people they're crap at managing their time, but if you're missing deadlines as a result of your team not being focused, I can imagine that's quite a difficult thing, and sharing your experience must be quite important in that scenario.
Yeah, but that's the same with everything though. If someone is not performing to the level that you want them to perform to for the base of the role they're doing, you give them feedback. Yeah. If they're performing really well, you give them feedback. It's feedback. It's the same as we're doing a test cycle on something, right? What's the feedback? Everything's successful. Everything failed. Some failed, some passed. Right, what do we do when it fails? Oh, we go back and do this. We go and check it and change this, understand why it's happening and fix it. And if it's going okay, great, we carry on and move on. And that's the same with coaching people and training people. You've just, and the same with yourself. Yeah, if someone applies one of these tools and techniques that we're talking about, and actually it isn't working, don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Just. But the goal is to improve a certain part of your productivity. So then go and look for other things that might address that productivity hole, and try them. And it might not work. And then try another, and try it. And it's trial and error. But it's all about feedback loops. If it works, great. And if people need help in your team, you're not. Our job is to help them be the best person they can be. it's not like they've got to take ownership as well, but we need to give them that environment. And if someone's not performing to the way they need to, you need to tell them. And it is hard to tell people sometimes, and sometimes they don't listen. And sometimes they don't think that they're not, but that's, again, that's characters working with different people's. Yeah, it's life, isn't it? You go work with different people's characters.
Definitely.
Dale is on mute there.
Am I on mute?
He's trying to talk. You miming, mate.
Am I miming? Oh dear. I was just going to jump in just with a quick question and then bring Val back in. Why don't we just get rid of email and not use it? Because we delivered projects back in the day before email was around.
Yeah, you could.
Why not just get rid of it?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good idea. Except
that'll never happen.
Well, it'll never happen, but it is actually a really productive tool. Yeah, for you as a communication tool, as an individual, to pass on information to more than one person in a really short space of time, for you, it's really good. Yeah,
and not for others.
But not for others necessarily. But that is partially because of there's such a tsunami of information there. But what are the other options? Is that it's the kind of the least worst scenarios in some ways. What other ways to do it? I have lots of Teams groups that have sprouted up in the last few years, which I've muted because there's just so much gibbering going on that I can't. I'm constantly being dragged to it, and and you've got Slack channels and things like that, and WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and your LinkedIn questions and all of these different, what are pretty unstructured conversations and difficult to interpret unless you're watching them happen. So it's difficult, I think, you need a structured communication tool as well as that unstructured stuff, because someone could have that whole conversation of 15 people talking through solving a problem, like I talked about before, through Slack, but then they need to communicate that to someone else. Go and read the Slack channel. You can, but actually someone pulling out the salient points for 5 minutes, writing it on an email and sending that to the people involved in it and other people who are interested means that's another way to communicate it. And I think it's one of those things. I find it really useful, email. I find the stuff that I get essential, but I find it so much garbage as well. I think the thing is you used to have lots of junk mail coming through the front door. You don't have as much as you used to.
Yeah.
Because, but there was always that junk mail that you'd throw away, sort of thing. But the email, the letters that you did get through the door were key and important. Your pen pal that you'd write to, and you'd get a message back from them.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's not the tool that's the issue. It's the way we use it, right? Yeah. And there's technology out there that can help us sift through, you know, I guess what's of value and what's not. I genuinely really like justdo.com's task specific chat. I really enjoy that because
I've not looked at that.
So Just Do, they're one of our sponsors, but I'm not saying it because they're a sponsor. If you look at their technology, you actually have for an activity that you've scheduled, you can have a chat specific to that activity. So you know that all of the conversation is around that and that specific activity only. Yeah. And then there's not emails that you have to sift through, and you can go in when you want it, and you can turn off, as you say, the alerts if you don't want them, etc. So that's quite cool to check out. But Val, come on, you've been silent there. Have you managed to have the caffeine hit you or not yet?
No, I can run on Steam. I was thinking about it because I think there's two fractions here. There's the self productivity, right, where we're talking about our individual kind of effectiveness in the world, and then there's team productivity, which is, you know, how do you get others to be productive and perform, kind of like a circus, really. So most of the time we're the ringmasters. We're trying to get.
I thought
all
you were
the
going to say
clowns-
most of the time we're the clowns, because that's what it feels like sometimes as a PM. But anyway, sorry to cut
We
across
are-
your analogy there.
we are as well, especially when clowns don't turn up on time. So I think we're trying to do this dance with various people and executives, and obviously what they care about is volume of output against a clear set of criteria. And I always found that interesting, because when you get different people into a room, their motivations are completely different. And I never found anything that would work properly, other than I actually found pictures were better than words. So I always thought it was interesting, because I'm not the best writer. I tend to be pretty quick, and I'm always future focused. So it's annoying, because generally when people have problems, it's like right now, right, Nigel? And I was thinking, why hasn't anyone come up with like a picture mail,
Yeah.
And that's because everyone's a shit drawer. So I was thinking, when I used to have like really big teams and I work with Dale and Martin, I would have a pile of paper. They can attest this. I'd have a pile of paper next to me, and someone would come to me with a problem. I was like, okay, what's the problem? And we would draw out the problem together. And I felt like that 5 minutes spent drawing out the problem, or doing an Eisenhower together, or prioritizing tasks, saved me, back and forth, maybe 4 or 5 emails, and then probably a check-up email after to see if they actually did it. I'd let them keep the piece of paper as they finish. Like, that's yours, sign it down the bottom, autograph, 2000, I wouldn't do that. But I thought that was really interesting. So I do think productivity is a really important skill set for a project manager, and for dealing with projects. The other thing is, I think with productivity, or at least with performance, you have to be willing to trade time now in order to think about the future.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of people don't. They my wife's guilty of this as well. They live in the now, which is great, right? So it's a blessing to be present. I know it's a very Buddhist way of looking at things. You need to be here. But with project managers, we always have to have one eye on the future, and particularly even individual productivity. Like, I know I have to get up at a certain time to do a podcast. I know I have to get up at a certain time to catch a plane for work. But I also I know I have to park a certain amount of time per day to think about the next day, the next week, the next year, the next 3. And that's how I plan out my days. Do you have any tactics or techniques, or does that align with you? And how do you trade time now for the future when you're so busy already?
I think it's a constant battle, because it's that, as you say, it's important and urgent. It's important to sit back and go, right, what do I want? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Personal, work, whatever. You think, I need to look at where I'm going to be there. But at the same time, that sits there as an important thing to do. It's important. And it's important to go and get a good diet and go and run and stuff. But it's not urgent at the moment, is it? Because it's not in front of you. And there's so many of those important and urgent things that are there that keep jumping in. And you've got to, I think it's about, it's discipline at the end of the day of going, I'm going to block out this time. I'm not going to let it get bounced by something urgent. The important things and the important not urgent, and the important urgent. The important not urgent are ones that are more likely to get pushed and kicked down as a can down the road, rather than your urgent not so important. Because quite often those, because just it's noise, I need to get it out of the way, can get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes to me, for me, it's like taking it another level on top of that, of understanding your objectives within those importance, because then you can look at, because if you've got 5 things that are your objectives, and they'll have a relative rank. So one of those will be your number 1 priority. So your number 1 priority might be being the best partner or father. So important is you need to do whatever you need to do in those scenarios. The fact that work comes with it, it's important for work, it's important for your role, and it's urgent now. Well, sorry, I can't stay late and do that. I've got to go home because this is happening with my family. And I think it's about adding another granularity in there, and then you can start thinking about, it's easier. So Val's just decided something else is more important now, I'm sure. I think it's easier to make those decisions and carve out time about long-term important things if you've got that additional metadata on that to say, actually, making sure that I have a good break at lunchtime every day is up there as important but not urgent. It's more important because that's going to keep my health much higher, and trying to do that is much easier.
Absolutely. I love the fact that we're having all sorts of things where it's great because we've got the gang back. Martin's completed us. We're all back together. I'm stuck on mute. Val's dropping out of the podcast. It's not a Project Chatter podcast without the technical hitches, but we've got Nigel Creaser who can do the podcast on his own, so it's fantastic. But
the thing is, as I say, I'll just keep talking, and if I just keep talking, I'll just keep talking. I had one of my guests on mine where I choked on a drink, and I had to hit mute, and she just started to answer a question of mine. And I was coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing way before COVID, so it wasn't going to do that. But eventually got back on, and we spoke after, and she said, I wasn't sure whether you were coming back on. And she just carried on talking for the whole thing. She just kept going. And she was just wondering whether this was going to be a live on air, me carking it. But fortunately, I was back. I was assuming, Val, that you'd found something of a higher priority that you needed to drop onto.
I was opening another window because I had two more things to say. I just jumped them in there before Martin jumps in. One of them actually was a tool that I used, and I just wanted to share with the masses that you don't know how bad you are until you measure it, right? There's some truth in that. So there's a software, and there's no affiliation, but it was called Clockify. And what I was doing was I was tracking how many times I get interrupted, how many times I'm working on answering emails to my executive who sat 2 seats over from me. How often was I dealing with non-work related stuff? How often was I dealing with stuff that they already knew the answer to or could find the answer to? And then I measured that at the end of the week. And it was the first time I did it, I was like, oh yeah, this explains a lot. And I started to make tweaks. And I think for anyone who doesn't know where to start, I think maybe just look at your day-to-day practice. What do you do? What are your rituals? Who bothers you the most? You'll find, the 80-20 rule peaks in here at some point. 80% of your time is spent with 20% of the people. Should those people be in that team at all? Good question. And sometimes you have to make some hard questions or hard decisions when you're managing the productivity of the team, right? Because some people just can't do it. It's not because they don't want to. It's actually because it's not for them. It's not in their dynamic to achieve against a set of targets or be time conscious or cost conscious. Some people are super interesting. I'm trying to be really nice about it, but they're completely in a different field. They're probably better off doing something else. So I just wanted to mention that. And then the second point, I wanted to bring in my pal Elon. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, Nigel. Everyone's shaking their head on the call. That's okay.
Does this happen often? Then?
Yeah, of course.
Every single pod.
I try and get at least one in. Elon, apparently in Elon Musk's meetings, he's kind of got this memo out for SpaceX that if you're not adding value or you see no value in being in the meeting within 10 minutes, you can leave the meeting at any point. Could be a face-to-face, could be online, whatever. What an interesting thing to do. And, because I'm English as well, but as an English, you wouldn't do that. That's very rude. To just get up and leave a meeting, even if you weren't contributing. But it's against the cultural norms. But what do you think of that?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think a lot of the time we're invited just in case to meetings. A lot of times you're still on an invite because people have forgotten to take you off because you've been on it for God knows how long, and you had to attend one meeting to be there for one reason or another, and then that was the one thing that you needed to contribute and you never needed to again. I think there's a balance with it of making sure if you are turning up at a meeting and you only just realize you're just not contributing 10 minutes in, it makes me wonder about the quality of the agenda and the information that has been sent out about that meeting beforehand, or your level of attention in reading that. And I think we're all guilty of popping in, can I have half an hour, like a half hour a conversation one-to-one with someone about the topic, broad range, kind of okay. As soon as you get over an hour and you've got more than 2-3 people in there, we really all need to say, right, we're going to do this. This is what we're doing. This is the expectation. This is the output. This is what, and even better would be is, this is what I think you bring to it. This is what I think you bring to it. And this is what I think you bring to it. So that people can turn around and go, hang on, I don't know anything about that. You need Joe over here. And I think as a meeting management is a something that we are all have masses to improve on, from preparation to invite to conduct and to post meeting activities. I think there's masses that we can do on improving those. Everyone complains about meetings being rubbish, and they spend large chunks of that meeting doing something else when they're on that meeting, whether it's on your phone or on mute doing something else. And then when your time comes to do their bit, you're going, oh, what, sorry, I didn't hear that. And if you're going to go and be part, I'm guilty as this as anyone. I'm not, as they say, I'm not a paragon of virtue. If you're not in that meeting and part of that meeting, then yeah, well, you're not adding any more value, are you? If you're half paying attention to it anyway, you might as well be gone. Sometimes it's useful because there's a part of that meeting and you might pick up something and doing something separate. But I think if you've got something better to do, just say, guys, I don't think I need to be here. I'll speak to you later.
Yeah. Problem is, Nigel, I've always got something better to do than go to a meeting. But you know,
if it's on if it's on your objectives, and it's in your important and your urgent category, that you absolutely shouldn't be there, should you? I know there's always something more interesting to do. As we say, there's so much shiny that you and I could look
exactly.
at.
I was being cheeky. But I think I do the same thing, Nigel. I think when I'm looking at meetings, and I don't look at emails a lot. I don't look at invites even. I'm generally late to most meetings. But I look at meetings in two ways. I look at meetings as I'm there, it's informative, or I have to make a decision, or it could be both, particularly in projects, right? So I'm there to be informing someone, or they're informing me, or I'm there to make a decision as part of a collective because they can't make it on their own. And a lot of the times, if it's just informative, I am AWOL. I am not there. And if it's really important, as Dale said, someone will call me or message me, and then I'll respond. And I just want to know, I think there are some changes to, you mentioned emails, how great emails are, and I agree that they're not going away anytime soon, but I think the next generation won't be using them as much as we did.
No.
And I think there's somewhat of a generational hold on the technology we grew up with. You know, we have some affinity to it, whether it's emotional or nostalgic, or it's just because it's what we know. When it comes to future stuff, we're adaptable, but we're not super adaptable. The next generation are born with it. They are innately adaptable. And you look at some of these startups and what tools they use, they're very free-flowing, they're very instant, they're very connected to their smartphones. They don't use structure the same way we do. They're very strange. And shout out to all of them, how they can manage so much work with little structure. And I actually think that's a really good thing for change, and particularly with COVID and some of the generations now, they're going through something we never did. And so it'll be interesting to see how that affects their productivity and performance, and how they manage projects, and particularly communication in that performance realm.
Yeah, I think I've seen it with, as you say, with the IM type of instant message kind of conversations and stuff that's going on. When way before COVID, we started at an organization I was at. We had a pilot for Skype. That was just Skype IM, and I was on it like a bonnet. Like, it was kind of, yes, I use this outside of here. I've used IM thing. I'm like, I want to do that. That's ideal. That's what I want, because then I can just ping people. And obviously that's migrated to Teams and changed to different ones there. And I still think that and you look at it in our personal lives as well. WhatsApp, how many WhatsApp groups are you part of? How many, if I turn off, well, one of the things one of the first things about productivity I've got is about notifications. Is my phone is on mute. It's been on mute for years, but there are certain notifications that I switch off. So Facebook and Twitter and things like that. I don't have the general notifications that I want your attention. Hello, I'm an app. Please come and look at an advert. I'll have certain things, and I choose what to switch on. So we have a family, and there's a friends WhatsApp group, and then one with another part of the family, and have it nothing wrong with either parts of the family. It's just different groups. There's no argument there. It's just having that ability with those two, for that WhatsApp group to alert me, because I choose to have it alert me. And I think that's the thing. It's the choice, isn't it, about what steals your time and what doesn't. And those, I've had scenarios where I've got a monitor vertical here where I have Teams channels on there, and I have the Teams channel that was going on there, and there was a very busy Teams channel, and I found it was just too distracting for me because I had other focus work. And I think it depends on the role, it depends on the type of environment you're in and what you're doing, on whether it distracts or doesn't. And I think it comes to that conversation of, there are so many of those tools now. There's so many communications channels that we've got. People who don't like writing, we can use TikTok and do video, can't we? And run our business. You've got the likes of Eddie Obeng with his the Cube metaverse that's been around in his place for that. There's so many different ways that are going to do it, and I think it is incredibly exciting to see all of these different methods. And I do think that the kind of metaverse thing, it might be a little while away, but that's kind of going to be the next generation's go-to. They know how to do it. The guys who are around now who are into the Slack channel and all these cool things and all these immediate communication things, I think when their kids are going to be at another level using stuff that they're going to struggle with, and we won't. It will be like our grandparents who didn't know how to program the video to record, or our parents or whatever. So I think it's exciting to see that, because obviously with my new shiny brain on, I'd like to get me pair of comfortable spectacles that have a head-up display and can do the AR stuff, and we could do this on the, I don't know, on the sand dunes of Tatooine or whatever. It's just, I just think it's a constant evolving, and it's faster and faster in these different tools. So understanding our priorities helps us decide how we use those tools. And then some of these things that I talk about will probably be redundant in a few years. Email will still be around probably, but maybe not, with blockchain and all that crap. It might be something completely different. And as AI comes in, well, AI will deal with most of your emails. And to be fair, a lot of the email tooling that I use, it's the first step of AI. So it's the first step of robotics, isn't it? You're using a tool to decide for you. And the same with your notifications, your Outlook rules. There's Outlook quick actions and things like that, where you're trying to automate as much as you can, and then that takes you away from thinking about it.
Well, I think there's and I'm like you, Nigel. I can continue talking about this for hours. I think Alexa for Business was an interesting one. I know you like shiny things, but where we go and we have it integrated with our mirror in the morning or whatever we're doing, and it tells us what our day is, how do we optimize it, and you probably have rankings, right? So you set some type of preference for various, as you've done for your WhatsApps, and you say, well, if it's this person, it's important. If this person, and once Alexa knows that, or whatever system, it will prioritize your day based on what gear you want to be in. So let's say you want to be in Elon Musk mode. It starts planning your days by 15-minute scheduled meetings.
Yeah.
Or you want to be in procrastinator mode, which means you need a lot of time to think and be creative. So you could have different modes for different days. And I think that's not far away. And you're right, that our kids will benefit from us flopping around with emails and calls and texts. But it's a very exciting future. Look, this is where we get to the fun part, Nigel. Obviously, it's all been fun, but Nigel, we'll hand over to Martin for the special feature.
Cheers, Val. As Val said, we have a special feature called Defend the Indefensible. It's where we ask our guests to defend a ridiculous statement for 30 seconds. It's inspired by some of the wonderful things we've all come across over the course of our careers. So if you're willing and keen...
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Let's make it start.
Hopefully I don't offend anyone.
Okay. So, Nigel, you have 30 seconds to defend the following statement. We should read all emails to keep on top of everything. Discuss.
Yeah, reading all email, keeping on top of everything means that you will have absolutely every piece of information that you could ever want in any given situation that you could ever need. So if you don't keep on top of them, you won't have everything. Therefore, at some point, you may be wrong. And if you are wrong, everybody in the world will decide that actually, if you are wrong about something, then you are an idiot and therefore not useful to be involved in any kind of business at all. So it's obvious that you should read every email all the time. I think it's kind of straightforward and simple, that.
Well done. Nice one. Okay, before you go, we've got one more. It's a quick one. It's called Fiverr. So 5 quick fire questions all about yourself.
Okay.
So if you're keen, okay, let's make a start. Question 1. Steak, seafood, or salad?
Seafood.
What are the 3 must-have behaviors you look for in successful project teams?
The willingness to learn, willingness to fail, and the willingness to support each other.
Great. Number 3, what's the one piece of advice for new people to the project management profession?
It's all about people. It's not about processes.
Nice. If you could go back to one moment of your life, what would it be and why?
It would probably the last time I saw my mum before she died.
Oh, nice.
Just to say hello and give her a hug again.
Number 5, which superpower would you choose to have for a day and why?
That's difficult. I think the power of Thor. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
The power of Thor. Are you going to have the hammer as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Me and my youngest are in the process of, we've been planning, obviously, and doing some draft blueprints to building one. We've got a blueprint printed off there, so we're going to build it out of one of these, these thermalite bricks. You can get up 2 of those, bolt them together, and use that as it. And then we're going to carve it out because it's soft, it's strong, and you can build houses at it. But you can cut it with a saw or a knife, so we can cut it into the right shape. So that's our project for this year.
Awesome. Well, send us pictures when you have it done.
Yeah.
Look, Nigel, it's been amazing to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been great.
We got to let everyone know as well, if they want to get more into the detail, you do have the book. It's called Project Manager Productivity Hacks.
I'll wave it in front of the screen for people on.
You can. Although it's easy enough, we'll post the link as well in the show notes, so folks, you can just click on that and go and check out Nigel's book as well. And if you're on YouTube, you've seen the cover, but it's on Amazon, so just go and check that out. But Nigel, before we let you go, any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the one thing I would say is making a decision to do something about your productivity, and just send all your, if you do nothing else, just set up that rule to get rid of your copied emails into another folder, and that will immediately start giving you more time to do the things that you need to do. And then you can, and it may be that it gives you 15 minutes to read a blog on how to be more productive on something else, or to whatever. So if you if you just do that, I'd be happy. If don't buy the book, just do that. It just means more people. If everybody did that, we'd all be happier and we'd have all more time and we'd all get stuff going.
There you have it, folks. Free. You don't have to get Nigel's book.
Yeah.
Just,
just
do
do
that one
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Nigel. Val, any final thoughts from you?
Thanks for your time, Nigel. It's been great. We'll definitely have another podcast for round 3, and also we'll definitely have a look at your book as well. And thanks for your time today.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, guys. It's been an honor to be on the show.
It's been our privilege, Nigel.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's that lack of sleep from the Connect group last night.
Yeah, beer does that.
Beer. Luckily, it was just beer. Hey, Martin. Anyway, folks, that is all the time we have. We won't talk about the beer any longer. If you like what you've heard, remember, please help us pay it forward by sharing a link to this episode on your favorite social media platform. Thank you once again to our guest, Mr. Nigel Creaser, and thank you all for listening. Till next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me, Martin, and Val, it's bye for now.